Okay, so this is intro Revit, the first intro. This has changed a little bit actually from last version, but when you start Revit, this is what you get. Okay. Maybe depending on your version, maybe slightly different, but essentially you will get an interface where it's telling you there's a world here of models. So there's something about working on a model. Let's call it a building, okay? The building of your house, the building of an office building. It's a project. It's also a project for industrial designers, but also for engineers, maybe calculating your structures, maybe for issues of HVA, like so the project is like the big scale where there are many little things inside, no? An interior design project as well. And then there's the world of families. A family is little things that come into the project, as simple as that, such as a chair, furniture in general, a structure, but it could be other things like a pipe, if you were to do some other engineer issues, no? What I recommend in general is always to start with the new here and use, and this is important, an architectural template. Notice that there are other templates. Is the construction template, structural template, mechanical template, and there might be even interior design template and so on. Depending on how you installed your Revit, you might have these things differently. And I'm sure there are going to be questions as in, hey, I'm doing this and this doesn't appear here, et cetera, et cetera. Most of those kind of issues are related to how you installed Revit. So to install Revit, I recommend that you check, for example, hey, give me all of the libraries and have a complete set of templates and so on. In general, you should all have these options, and I recommend that you always start with the architectural template. Here's important, do not click project template. Leave it where it is, as project. If you click on template, basically you're gonna be working on how the next time you start, maybe you wanna start with a different template. No, you want to work on a project. You say, okay. Okay, everybody's here, more or less. You can see the stuff going on here in front. People in the dark side, if you want to say yes or no, you can do the hand or whatever you want. It's fine if you don't want to show your faces, that's okay with me. Okay, so here's what we have. This is Revit, the interface. It looks somehow similar to AutoCAD. I imagine some of you feel like there's some things that are similar, no? So you have several buttons here on the top, multiple tabs that you can go from one to another. Obviously, the tabs are different than in AutoCAD, relate to different things. You might have more tabs or less tabs depending on the version and also depending on whether you have specific plugins. In general, I think I have a couple of them more, like add-ins and whatever. So don't worry about those things too much. As long as you have the basic ones, architecture, structure, and up to modify, which should be around here, modify, but you may not have some of those, it's okay. Okay, we have two window panels here that you can drag out. And if you have two screens, you can place these two windows in the other screen. So you can have a bigger interface in the middle, you know. Similar to any software again, especially the Autodesk base, which is what Revit is. So you can dock in and dock out. You can close these guys and you can also dock them where they were. Now this oftentimes is a little crazy because it wants to dock it on the bottom, on the left, on the top, and you're like going crazy, you're not sure. Just be gentle and put it where you want it to be. When it turns blue, you lift your finger and that's where you want to place. Normally the way I organize my little panels are one on top of another one in the left, especially if, you see, that's a tricky one right there. There. Normally because I only have one screen, but if you have two, again, I recommend you have your properties and your project browser, which are these two panels. You can have them on the other screen. You can obviously close them, but I will say that you don't do that. You should not close your property panels nor your project browser, like I just did. So if you close them by accident, or you go to a computer lab and they're closed and you don't know where to get them from, remember that it's something that it's view, no? So the view option here will have all of the issues related to how you see the interface. So all the way to the right, you have user interface. And here, whatever is checked, you have it. Whatever is not checked, you don't have it. So you click on project browser and go back again and properties. Again, properties should be docked, I recommend at least, on top of the project browser. Project browser, I don't think AutoCAD has it, but the properties, all of the softwares have, and it's basically telling you all the properties of the things that you're selecting. So if you select a line or a wall, whatever, here you will be mentioned, you will be told what type of wall, how big it is, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Also, properties is about, you know, if you don't select anything, you know, what's the scale of this view, or, you know, what are the features of this particular view, graphics and display. It's like how you see things, et cetera, et cetera. So properties panel is a must in Revit. You cannot work without the properties panel here. Another must and fundamental is the project browser. Project browser, you can think of it as, like in Rhino has 4 different views, such as you know, perspective, top, front and right kind of thing. Here's that you can create thousands of views of the same thing. It's just that you're cutting the thing horizontally at this level, horizontally at that level. You're creating this cut, this other cut. So all of the different ways of seeing a project will be actually manifested here, and you can double click on them and see that particular view of the same project. We can try that. Let's for a second double click on level 2, for example. We can double click on site. We can double click on the ceiling plan. We can double click on level 2. You can click on east elevation, north, and west. For now, I don't recommend you explore what happens below the last, let's call it a project view. So don't worry about legends, schedules, sheets, families, groups, and Revit links, okay? Don't worry about those, just the different views of them. So as you double click, look up here, you were actually creating different views, no? So I have now level 2 here. Every single double click I did to a different project browser element, it's open up here. So that means that as you are trying to see the project from different views, you're just opening new windows. So you can end up with 123 windows, which is, it could slow down a little bit the Revit interface. So I recommend that you just take a look at, you make sure that you only have 1 or 2 or 3. And the way to close multiple windows at the same time, I recommend you do the following. You click on the one you want to work on, like level 1, the plan level 1. And here there's actually a button that says close inactive views. So if you'll click on that button, what it will do is close everything but the view that you are at the moment. Okay. If you have 1,000 views and you're working on one view, you're changing the other views as well. So it's, again, the same project seen from different places, from different perspectives, from different angles, from different elevations, orthographic views. So don't think that if I have here level 2, north elevation, level 2, whatever, and I do something here, I'm actually changing the whole project, which means that I'm changing every single view at the same time. So that means that I can close windows and Revit is not going to ask me, hey, do you want to save that window? You don't save windows, you save a project, okay? So only when you want to close the last window of that project, let's say level 2, it will ask you, hey, do you want to save the project? No. Any thoughts on that? Everybody's double clicking stuff here and there, or fingers up and down, right and left? The good fingers. Okay. We got a finger from Alexa. Thank you, Alexa, for thumbs up. Let's call it thumbs up. Otherwise, the finger is going to sound like we're talking about different things. Okay. Okay, the main tab is actually the architecture one, but we'll see we're going to be using many other ones. And you can create, as opposed to AutoCAD where you create lines and you create points and you create basically vectors, no? And then by creating 2 lines that are parallel and continuous, you call that a wall, but nobody says that's a wall. No? Here you directly build or model a 3-dimensional wall. So the wall is an element that you will be able to model directly, and then you will be able to extract information from it. For example, if you cut it at whatever height, you get the plan of that wall. If you cut it vertically, you get the section of that wall. So as opposed to AutoCAD, where you create the plans, the sections, and then potentially you build the model, Revit, you create the model first, and out of that model, you extract plans, sections, etc. That's the way it works. Okay? Thoughts about that? Nice. Let's do a couple of walls now. Let's actually just work on level 1, floor plans. Notice that you have level 1 also in ceiling plans and level 2 ceiling plans, okay? So sometimes and often in the beginning, you will confuse level 1 from ceiling plans and the one for floor plans because they're named the same, but you have to be careful that they're actually docked under floor plans or under ceiling plans. It's important to know because the way you create things is entirely different in floor plans and ceiling plans. So now floor plans is cutting at a 4 feet height looking down, versus ceiling plan is cutting at 7 feet looking up. And we'll see that as we move forward. Let's create our first wall at level 1. So we double click on level 1. We click on wall. And before we go crazy creating 1,000 walls, like if we were digital math people, for any element you introduce in Revit, it is very important that you set the parameters of that element. And when I say parameters, I mean what kind of wall, what kind of door, what kind of window, what kind of element, how big is that wall, how big is that window, how big is that element, what is the width, the height, what is the materiality, etc., etc. So you have to always question yourself, hey, before I place this element, this wall in this case, shouldn't I make sure I, introduce the parameters of that wall? Yes, the answer is yes. So you should take a look at, for example, if you click here on the little triangle, you can access multiple types of wall. And it explained by a little text. You can insert a wall that is exterior, brick on CMU. CMU is concrete modules. It could be exterior, bricks on CMU, and not on metal studs. Then brick on metal studs, CMU insulated. And you have exterior, and then you have a foundation wall. That probably is a wall that goes underground. Then you have a generic. These are more just simple walls that you can work with afterwards. A 4-inch made of brick, 5-inch, 6-inch generic, masonry, etc., 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 etc. You have interior partitions. It's not the same. An exterior wall and an interior partition. Interiors makes sense, goes to the interior. The exterior is that wall that separates the exterior world from the interior world. You have many types of interiors depending on their thickness, but depending also the materials and the layers that makes for that wall. As you know, almost every wall out there is made of multiple layers. It's not like back in the times maybe where a wall was only made of wood, or maybe it was made of stone in the Gothic times or whatever. Now we have like maybe 6 layers of different stuff: insulation, metal here, sheetrock, etc., no? And we will see how we can manage layers as well. Anyway, different thickness, retaining, that's probably for foundations and soffit as well. Let's create a couple of different walls, and let's just click on exterior wall, for example. What other parameters are important for the wall? For the wall, an important parameters is from where to where it goes. So basically, hey, is it going from level 0, level 1, sorry, to level 2? And that's the way I control the height. Is it going from level 2 to level 3? Imagine you have a building with 10 stories. Maybe you want to say this wall goes from level 8 to level 9. And we'll talk about levels in a second. But you need to say, hey, from where to where it goes. And all of these parameters up here is just to say that. You can use also these parameters. But let's just say I want the height to be up to level 2. This is what I just said here. There are also different ways of allocating the wall. The wall could be aligned to the center, to the right, to the left. For now, I'm going to just leave them as wall center line, and you can offset. We'll see about that as we go. Long time ago, but when we click to the wall component, automatically we jumped to modify. You didn't have to go there, it just went there. So don't be confused. For example, hey, what happened with my walls, etc., etc. When the second you click wall, you click floor and many other ones, you are taking automatically to the wall of the modify, okay? Modify is basically the world where you can actually edit things and create things. Edit thing is like creating offsets, moving something, aligning something, doing a mirror of something, scaling something, splitting something, rotating something. That's the changing. But you also create, no? I want to create a wall that is straight line. I'm going to do it right now. The way you introduce a wall is by clicking 1, obviously, and twice, 2 clicks. You can continue the wall if you keep on clicking. That means that you're actually generating a continuous wall that has the shape of a polyline. Only when you're done, you can escape once. If you escape once while you're doing a plan, it doesn't step out of the create wall configuration, steps out of that polyline, so you can continue doing another set of polylines or another wall here or there. So one escape steps out of that kind of a continuous set of walls, and escape 2 times, you move away from the whole wall operation. Let's do it again. Wall. Now I'm going to change the type, and I recommend that I'm going to give you now 5-10 minutes, that you create different walls, different types of walls, and that you test with different draw criteria here. For example, I can do an arc wall. I can escape once and do a polygon type of wall. Escape once, and I can do actually many things, like fill it in, etc., etc. Okay, 2 escapes, you step out of the world of walls. Notice again that we're not creating like in Autocad 2 lines or anything. This is just giving me already the entire and full wall. So let's spend 5 minutes doing walls like crazy. If you have any questions, let me know, okay? Okay. So yeah, these elements here, let me talk about more basic things because we jumped to the wall issue. This element here, it's basically the elevation mark or the elevation symbol. There's two components to it. There's a square and there's a triangle. When you click on the triangle, you expose the blue line that is invisible when you deselect. Okay, that is a section plane, and the direction of that section is in this orientation, is the orientation of the triangle. These four symbols are the symbols that mark these four elevations here. Think of what is an elevation in architecture. Imagine a building here in the middle. An elevation is a north elevation, south elevation, east elevation, and it's basically a section that looks to the exterior of a building. And this is what this recommends. For interior design, it's not that important because we don't usually give exterior elevations of a building. But we do use interior elevations, which I will be talking about later on. So this brings a good point. Let's actually, you can go to the elevations by double clicking on one of the elevations, let's say east. And you can also go, if you're in the level 1, you can double click on the triangle 2 times, and it will take you to that elevation. You can also see the elevations from the 3D mode, which is, I call it the doghouse up here. This is a way to see the 3D of the model we were creating. So far, we have only made several walls, so this is what we see. Let's talk about even, yes.
Another question with the elevations, when you go back to the floor plan view and you see the elevations, what happens when you click on the square and not the triangle?
The square is, it's a type of symbol. Wait a minute. The square is a type of symbol that is also used for interior elevations. And basically you can check on these 3 options if you were to have an interior elevation that looks in 4 different directions. Let's imagine you have a room, let's say an office space that is actually here, no? You will introduce this symbol and you will activate these other interior elevations.
Okay.
And you will rename them and they will appear here. Slowly, I think we will get there. Well, let's go back to the 3D and let's talk about how we move because we haven't talked about this. If we're in the plan view or section view, orthographic view, we will scroll in and out to zoom in and zoom out. This is zooming in to see the things closer and so on. If you want to pan, what you do is press the scroll button and move right up and down, right and left. If we're in orthographic or in any view, actually, you can select any object, of course. And the way you select, slightly different and sometimes annoying in the beginning, but it's quite useful, is that you first step on top of an object without clicking the mouse. And if you're hovering on top of an object, it turns blue. That's in a way telling you, hey, if you want, you can select me. And at that point is where you click the left button of the mouse. Another, like it's a little annoying in the beginning, but later on is it's very much welcome, is that whatever you select in Revit, it gives you all of these parameters and all of this information. Sometimes you might think, what the hell, I don't want all this, and I can't see through it. Well, that's an issue of accommodating the eye and actually the mind to say, well, some of this stuff is actually useful. But just take advantage that when you select something, you not only are selecting and getting the properties, of course, which means that I can change the properties and the heights and everything, but I can also see, that wall is exactly 96 feet long. It also gives me a symbol. I might want to flip that wall. It's an angle from this other wall. It is telling me it's 65 degrees. So there's a lot of information that is very useful. If you want to add to the selection, you press Control and you add elements to the selection. If you want to deselect one by one, you press Shift. But you can also deselect everything by clicking away from the objects. When we are in the 3D, again, the doghouse on the top, well, we scroll in and scroll out the same way. Zoom in, zoom out. We pan the same way, pressing the scroll button. But in order to orbitate, you need to press Shift and the center button. Start raining a lot, nice. Shift and center button allows you to orbitate freely. Some people like to use the little box here. By clicking on the little corners, you can drag it right and left, and you can go to particular view. For example, if you click on this little box just once, which is the corner of that box, this is exactly an isometric view of this project. This is another isometric view. You can have an isometric view from the bottom. You can have elevations as well, but I'm not a fan of this feature, but some people love it. So it's up to you to decide if you want to use it in general. I like to do the shifting around freely to work, and then only sometimes I want to extract an isometric, so I will click there, and I will call this as a nice drawing, so on. Notice how the 3D, the doghouse, has the levels as well. Level 1, level 2. You can select them. And same way, when you hover on top, they turn blue, but then you can select them and they fill in blue. No? Level 1, level 2. Notice also that every single wall I created before, it's going from level 1 to level 2. That's because I wanted that. I actually changed the parameters, remember, to say I want the height to go to level 2. But you might have many other levels, and you may want to have these walls going from different levels. How do we create levels? That's a very important one. Well, the best place to create a level is from the elevations, or when we have sections in the future, from sections. If we double click on an elevation, east, for example, you can take a look at the levels. Again, levels are like invisible planes. It's not part of a wall or anything, or it's not a window component. It's just an invisible plane that you can then afterwards say to windows and doors to be at this level. So that's why levels are very important, no? You can clean up the levels by selecting the line of the level and then dragging this little circle there to the right, and it normally will take both levels to the right. You don't have to do that if you don't want. You can change the height of the level. So imagine you're doing a project, and from level 1 to level 2, it's actually not 10 feet, which is normally very small. It's actually 15 feet. So you will click on the text once and then twice to change that number 15. I'm going to press enter, and it will take the level further up. Let's all change the height of the level now. Again, you click on the text on the number, click again, and you can set it to a different height. Noticed, and my walls are changing. As I change the level, the walls are like dummy. They go to the level. They follow the level. That's because when I created the wall, I said, hey, from 1 to 2, this wall. If I change level 2, the wall remembers and it goes with the level. It's called a link condition. We can create as many levels as we want. And that's under architecture, here, under datum, level. The way you insert the level, it's this most time, 99% of the times the level is actually a horizontal element. So you will click once on the left, twice on the right, and it will create a new level at whatever height you made. If you don't like this level height, you can again change the number. The second you introduce a level, at that very second, you are given another view at floor plans level 3, ceiling plans level 3. Makes sense because you created another level, meaning another floor condition. So I would like you to create several levels and change them. You can also rename the level, of course, by clicking on the text once and then twice and call it hello. When you rename a level, just be careful because it's just going to ask you, hey, do you want to rename also the way it's inserted into the views? I normally will say yes, but you could say no, depending on many reasons. If you say yes, the level hello will come in here and will be renamed hello. And because they're organized in alphabetical order, they will just go on top of level 1. Renaming is very valuable, so let's try that as well. For the next 5 minutes, try to create many levels, try to rename the levels, and try to give different heights to the level and see how things change. And also, try to create walls from different levels to other levels. The way I will do it from level 2 to level hello, I will first always go to level 2, double click. I will create a wall, and then here I will say height to hello. So then I know that I'm going from the level I am at the moment, level 2, to the level I'm saying here, level hello. Change the type of wall, interior partition, for example. Escape twice, 3D, and notice how those new walls or partitions are actually made from level 2 to level hello. I can also create, obviously, from level 1 to hello. I go to level 1, create a wall, select the type of wall, say generic, and say from height, level hello. So that means that wherever I am is the base, level 1, I want to go up to the height of hello. And I can do a different type of wall here. I can do another type of wall, a fillet wall. And if I go to the 3D, I can see the cylinder going from level 1 to hello. And I believe I did this one with a fillet from level 1 to hello. So let's all try now for 5 or 10 minutes to create levels and to make walls that go from different levels up from level 1 to level 3, from level 1 to level 4 if you have, from level 2 to level 4, from level 3 to level 4, etc., etc. And again, normally is you go to the level that is on the bottom, you create a wall, select the type, and say to what level you want to go. And that's where you say it in the height component. Let's do that for 5-10 minutes. If you have any questions, let me know, okay? So that's a good question. One thing that happens often, as I mentioned, is that if you, for example, in the elevation, you see the levels 1, 2, 3, you might select a level and copy. How you copy, move, everything, what is the shortcut in Revit? Shortcuts in Revit are 2 letters. You press 2 letters and then you wait. You don't have to press enter like AutoCAD. Maybe in the beginning you're gonna start pressing enter like crazy. No, so you just say, for example, CO, which is copy, and that's it. There's no more to it. You can obviously copy multiple and so on, but I'm gonna just copy from here, click up, and you can press a number, but you can also just wait to see this kind of a reference dimension to be the one you want. Let's say 24.6. First thing I notice is that we don't see that new level under floor plans nor ceiling plans. So that's maybe a problem, maybe not. We'll see what the difference is. Second thing I notice is that actually there's the blue type of level here, and this one is a dark one in black color. That means there are slight differences. The one you copy normally is not shown here because in Revit thinks that you are going to use it for other purposes, not necessarily for creating a fundamental floor level. And why would you use levels for other than a floor? Maybe you have multiple mezzanines, or imagine it's a stair that's very complicated and like a stand stair, and you have different waiting areas or whatever. Maybe you want to say, hey, that's another level and another level. You may have even 5 levels between level 1 and 2, and you might want to rename them as the waiting space in the stand or whatever, and you can give them more complex names, and you don't want them as a fundamental structural level. No? So those are useful actually to have as a possibility. But if you copy a level and you say, wait a minute, I need to be able to go to that level at a given point, the way to do that is under View, Plan Views, and floor plans and reflective ceiling plans, but I'm going to do floor plans for now. All of the levels that you do not have in the project browser will be appearing here. You just select them and say OK, and automatically will appear in the project browser. Notice that they're not appearing in the ceiling plan. If you want the ceiling plan to appear there, you say reflected ceiling plan under View, Plan Views, and then you select that one and say OK. I'm going to close every window except that one. Okay? So that's a way to get all the levels in. When you create from scratch a level, you go to architecture level, and then you click 2 times. In this occasion, always will appear directly into both ceiling plans and floor plans. Because Revit thinks, okay, that level must be important. There must be a floor there. Okay. When you delete the level, it's also going to delete all of those views that are being created. Okay, let's spend another 3-4 minutes with this because I think it's very important. Again, create levels and make many walls of different types. Try different line configurations, polygon walls, curved walls, etc., and try to go from level X to level Y and change those levels, okay? And let me know if there's any questions. Okay, that's that. Levels, I would say, is the most important thing to know because everything relates to levels. And again, as I move, for example, this level, which is level hello, and I do it organically, I can select and drag up and down. look how actually the wall is coming with it. No? So there's a link, and sometimes it's an annoying link, but it's an important link to know. Levels relate to walls, and obviously, as you can imagine, it will relate to ceilings, it will relate to floors. Okay, I'm gonna rename the hello as level 3. Oops. There you go. Okay, floors. Well, the best way to do a floor is very simple. You will go to the level you want the floor on. I want the floor, for example, level 2. Double click on level 2. Click on floor. Different types of floor, just use for now floor architectural. It is the one that most times you're gonna be working with. Similar to walls, what type of floor do you want? There are not that many types, and we will see later on that both walls and anything else can actually be, you can create your own type. For now, let's just select example wood joist 10 inches ceramic tile. This is again telling you it's going to be created at level 2. And here's what happened again. As I clicked floor, we jumped to the modifier, remember? And there's slightly different things happening between walls, windows, and three-dimensional components and more orthogonal components like floors, ceilings, and we'll see like roofs. When you go to floor, ceilings, and roofs, you get this little thing, mode, red X, green check. While you're in this phase, this means that, hey, create your floor and click on I'm done, check. While you're in this phase of creating a floor, roof, ceiling, you can't do anything else. That's why when you go to structure or whatever architecture, everything is like toned down. And sometimes you're gonna be like annoyed, like what the hell is happening here? I want to do a wall. You are just forgetting that you are in the process of making a floor. So go back to modify, finish your floor, or say I don't want to do any floor. So one of the two has to happen before you jump into anything else, because you can't really escape out from this world, okay? The way it works again, floors, ceilings, roofs, is that you draw a close polyline. What I mean close is very important, that is close. So I'm gonna do something intentionally wrong. This polyline will be in magenta line. And imagine I want a very funky wall, a floor, sorry. And I go there and I leave that unclosed. This is not closed, open. And I say, this is the shape of my floor. I'm done. I already know that Revit is going to say, no way, I'm not doing this for you. And he's going to say something like, hey, it's open, polyline, so try to close it. If I say yes, there it goes. The symbol says, hey, line must be in closed loops. The highlighted lines are open on one end, and it tells you in orange where it's open. You say continue. You go to where the problem is. You fix the problem. You check you're done. When you create a wall, this window will pop out almost always. It's difficult to explain in the beginning what it means, but it's basically means that if you have some walls, do you want them to step down under the floor? Yes or no? That's, I would normally say do not attach. When you get more comfortable about what it means, I would sometimes say attach, but I would say as a general rule, say do not attach. And there is our first wall, floor. If I select it, it will say yes, floor wood joist is at level 2. I agree. Yes, this is level 2. It's exactly on level 2. The relationship between a level and a floor is simple. This invisible plane of the level, it's exactly on where your feet steps on the floor. Okay, so look at the floor where you are right now and where your feet are touching. That surface is actually where the invisible plane of the level is. It's not underneath the floor, it's not in the middle, it's exactly on the end of the finished material, let's call it. Any thoughts about that? Let's say this floor, I want to edit it. I change something in my architecture in the interior, or I change some walls, partitions, and I have to edit the floor. It's very simple. You select the floor, you can double click it, but you can also click on edit boundary. This will take you back to the magenta environment, which is the creation mode, and you can do the editing slowly and calmly and introducing whatever variations you might have. You can include obviously arcs or whatever it is, as long as you have a close polyline, you're good to go. Again, the same thing. If you say do not show this message again, do not attach, that would be good. Okay, I create a free, crazy looking floor there in level 2. But most of the times you have to be a bit more careful about where you create your floor. It's not like just creating a polyline. So on level 3, on level 2, I'm going to create a floor that corresponds with this cylinder exactly. So I'm going to say floor. I am in level 2, so I'm good. I'm going to select the type of floor. I'm going to just change it for now. And I need to create somehow this circle here. You want it to correspond with that. You can create a circle. If we're lucky, we have the center point. If you're not lucky, you can't do that. Doesn't work. You could potentially draw some lines and so on, but there's another way to select walls or lines and make that selection become the magenta line. It's a little tricky what I'm saying, but notice these two elements when you're creating a floor, ceiling, or floor, or a roof. These two green elements allows you to pick lines or pick walls that will automatically become a magenta potential floor line component. I don't know if you can see that here. I did, let me go back. I am in the process of creating a floor that corresponds with the cylinder. I'm going to pick a pick line. I'm going to pick the line of the interior. It turns blue, pick, and automatically the pick line becomes magenta. Pick line becomes magenta. I trust that this is a closed polyline. I say okay. It's not popping the famous question of what you want them to touch, because I say don't give me that stuff again. If I go to the 3D, that's the wall right there, the floor. Let's do it again with this element. If I go to level 2, for example, I do again a floor architecture. I can pick lines. Say I want the floor of this type to be here, here, here. But now I'm going to do and complete it in another way. So you can pick and also continue with other lines that you have here to complete that polyline. No? Once the polyline is closed, okay, go to the 3D, And there you have your floor. Notice how this wall is exactly finishing on top of that. This wall is exactly finishing on top of that floor. That's because we did not say, hey, wall become attached to the bottom, but you can do that afterwards. That's why previously I always say check no. But you can select the wall, and when you select the wall, this option appears, attach top base. And then you can click on the floor, and the wall automatically comes underneath the floor. Anyway, that's too much. I want you to work on floors for a little bit, and we will expand on floors in 5 minutes. So, okay, more stuff. Selecting more, as in more different ways. Again, as I mentioned, you can select also in 3D. By pressing Control, you can add to the selection one by one. You can deselect with Shift, but there's another very important kind of a tool in Revit that allows us to select differently, which is by pressing Tab. And this, I'll explain it slowly, and I want everybody to try that. Let's imagine, I'm gonna delete these things, that you have this chain of walls, which is like a polyline setting of walls. They have to be connected, or this one. When you have multiple walls connected to each other, there's a way of selecting the entire chain at once. The way to do that is to step on top of the first wall. It turns blue without selecting anything, pressing Tab once and lifting the button, and then clicking the mouse left button once. Again, you hover on top of the wall, the first one, it turns blue, but you don't select it. You click once on the Tab button. You don't keep it pressed, and then you click the mouse left button. This is very, very useful for many things. You can do this with multiple lines when you're doing a floor, for example. This is incredibly important for you to know. Again, this is a chain of walls. They're connected. You step on top of the first one. You do not select it. It just turns blue because you're hovering on top of it. Pressing Tab once, and then click the left button of the mouse to select the chain. Now, when you have 4 walls, maybe you can do Control, Select very easily. But when it's a project, sometimes a whole chain of walls on the exterior or whatever, it might be a selection of 15, 20, who knows, 35 different walls. You don't want to go one by one. You want to do the chain selection. Anybody it's having issues with that one, or let's actually spend 2 minutes with that and try to. So again, you can select windows that we have placed, and you can say MV, click, and then insert the different parameters by just pressing one number, spacebar, and another number. That would be 2 feet and 5 inches. Or MV going up, for example, vertically, and you can say 3 and then 1/2. That would be 3 feet and 1/2 inch. So those are very simple. You can also move it around. If you take it outside of the wall where it is, it's going to say, wait a minute, you're out of the wall. That doesn't make any sense. You have a chance of deleting that window. Normally you would say cancel unless you don't want it, which you can select and delete. What would you do? 2 steps, no? Control Z. If you want to take it to a different wall, well, you can do 2 things. You can delete the window and place another window and say that window goes here. But there's also another way, which is sometimes easier. Select that and pick new host. Host is almost like who's hugging the window. That's the host. And you say, give me that other wall, no? Or place that window in that other wall. Okay. These are basic things. Windows, doors is very similar. If you click on a door component, you also have different types of doors. And you can obviously only place those on walls, and they need to be linked to a level. Okay, so they cannot be in the middle of a level. A door always relates in its bottom to a level. A good thing about obviously doors and the power of Revit in that sense that the second you place a 3D model of the door, I'm going to change the type here. If you go to the plan view, double click, it gives you the opening symbol of the door, the whole detail that the door's corresponding elements are. You can select the door on the top view, and you have flipping options. You can click on flipping right, left to one side or another. And obviously you can select the door and change the type after you have inserted that door. You can move the door same way as the window, but you can't take it outside of the wall. If you want to take it outside again, select pick new host, place it there. Okay. If you have to place columns, slightly different depending on, but normally you will say columns, and it's a bit more tricky, but you have different types of columns. In this case, it's only metal that I see. And basically you have to say similarly height and to what level does that column go. So you will say from level 1 where I am, I want to go to level 2, and that's when you click and it will create a column. Maybe that's more of a structural elements that you don't need, at least for my class, but you will probably need some of that for Studio in the near future. We'll see about that more in detail. Oftentimes you need grids in plan views, so grids are fundamental, especially if you're working on orthographic, strongly orthographic projects, which is not our case, but oftentimes you want to, in Studio, to introduce grids. And the way you introduce grids is just by clicking to time, similar to levels, but you will do it in a plan view. Grids are automatically named or numbered, and you can definitely copy them and place a number like, let's say 10 feet to the right, and then it will be renamed automatically. You can adjust the grids in different ways. There's a whole world of grids and how they work and so on. I'm gonna delete those. Okay, just one little thing before we go to how we see this. The floors tend to obviously have openings in the middle. If you have a stair coming from level 1 to level 2, you might have an opening here where the stair is. How do we create an opening in a floor in Revit? Well, you will select the floor, you will edit the boundary, or again, double click, and you need to do similar to Rhino, an opening inside. I'm going to do a bit more funky opening. Okay, if my polyline, the one of the floor, has another polyline that is close inside, this means you're doing a donut in a way. It means that the center here is not going to be with a floor. So that's a way for you to somehow create that opening. Again, you can edit the boundary. You can drag this line down, say okay, and you will be creating a different opening. Okay, openings are very simple to do in Revit. It's fantastic, and you can change it as you go, depending on the details of the floor, stairs, or whatever. Okay, so I want to talk now a little bit how we see things in Revit. which is this series of tabs, which we haven't talked about, but they're very important. Okay. If we go to level 1, you get a plan. You can already save file and export this and say CAD, and you can actually export a DWG, a CAD file of that plan alone. No? So it will come with layers, which is fantastic, and with all of the details that you need. If you want to draft on top of this plan that you have here on AutoCAD, in AutoCAD, you can do that very easily. You can also say print. You can print this plan, print, and you can say PDF, which is the thing that I would recommend always. And you will just set the views. We will talk about this in detail as we move forward. You can extract basically this as a PDF. Now, because we can export it as a DWG, again, export as DWG, that means that we can also take that into Illustrator directly. And because it comes with all of the layers, guess what? You can fix the line weight in a very easy way there if you want to be a bit more picky about those things. But there's a way to extract this thing from Revit. One is, hey, this plan, I want it in AutoCAD. Export DWG, take it to AutoCAD, keep on working in AutoCAD for things that you're comfortable with. Could be any level, it could be elevations, could be sections, which I will talk in a second, etc., etc. Another way is just to print this view will be to print PDF and select this view and say, you know, I want the PDF that is in a particular size of paper, etc. And you will have also a vector-based plan of this. There's a whole thing that I will be talking another day, which is the world of sheets. Sheets is basically creating a paper space, like in AutoCAD. I want a paper of X by Y, and I want to drag these particular views. I'll talk that maybe not today. It's a bit more in detail. Why am I talking about exporting as DWG, especially about printing? Because the way this will print is at this scale. It will print at 1/8 of an inch equals 1 foot. No other scale, now this is the one it's going to be printing at. If you want to change the scale, you click on that first element and you change the scale here. Say, oh, this, I want it to be printed 1/4, I want it printed 1 whatever, 3/8, 1/2, etc. This automatically changes all of the symbology, the line thickness, all of the things that are crazy in AutoCAD, although you have annotated. Anyway, it becomes super easy here to do. Just change the scale, everything associated with the scale will change. So that's an important one to know. Okay, the default is set to 1/8. That means that one level could be set to 1/8 and the other level could be a 1/4, etc., etc. We'll see that. Okay, next, if we're working, detail level in floor view. If I zoom in to my plan, my level 1 or whatever, and notice how I have thick line, and then a thin line. This is a simplification of the layers that this wall has. If I want to see this in more detail, there's an option here for medium and fine, which is basically the same. But if you go to fine view, you are given more lines and more hatches representing all of the layers of this wall. And again, this wall, if I selected, was actually an exterior wall, and it has a bunch of layers associated with it. If I again change this to fine view, any of the walls that I created will be showing all of the different lines that define it. If you want to present a project in a more basic condition, maybe studio normally, and like a first entry of a project, you don't normally want to go to fine or medium. You want to stay in coarse because it keeps it much cleaner and much more abstract. And then in more detailed construction documentation drawings, you will go to the detail or fine view. Okay, any thoughts about that? That's in 2D, the scale and the fine and versus coarse view.
I have a question. Is there a way to like go from thin lines to thick lines in plan view, or is that the same?
Yes, so it's a bit more advanced, but notice how you see these thick lines. I would trust that Revit is doing its best on the way it represents the lines for different scales. So if I change this to from 1/8 to 1/4, as I mentioned, notice how the line weight changed automatically. I say we all trust that Revit is doing a good job with the line thickness, the default setting. Obviously, you can change those things. Now, there's another command, which is sometimes you're working on, let's say, a big scale, let's say 1/8, and it becomes a little like a, difficult to work with. But that's different. Difficult to work with versus representing at the end printing, let's say. If you want to work with thin lines, there's a TL, is thin lines command, TL. And that gives you a representation of the drawings with absolutely no thickness. And sometimes it's good if you want to move something from one point to another precisely. Because again, if you go TL again, which is thick lines, this is way too thick to actually know exactly where the meeting point of two lines is. But this is only, I recommend it only to work with, to see the lines in a very clear way. TL. And back again, TL.
Thank you.
The rest of the options are mostly for 3D modeling, how we see the 3D model. So I'm going to go to the doghouse and go to the 3D model. And let's start with the first visual style. This is actually allows you to go to wireframe. Very difficult to work with, but sometimes useful if you want to see through something. Hidden line is the one I always work with. Only sometimes, and especially when I'm dealing with materials, I go to shaded view. This allows you to see a bit more the materiality of a project or a model. And I really do not use the other ones, only sometimes when I want to just check the renderings. But you can see consistent colors, realistic. It does a little bit of a rendering already, but it takes a lot of memory, so I wouldn't work this way. And then Raytrace just takes even more time. Raytrace is just the rendering engine in Revit. Notice how it's taking a long time. I'm also sharing in Zoom, but it's trying to do that rendering. Okay, that will take a long time. I do not recommend you work there, but again, it's up to you guys. I think hidden line is just good to work. That's a good way. Sometimes you want to see shaded, etc., etc. Next, and very important, shadows. You can turn on the shadows or turn them off. Actually, we skipped one, which is the location and so on. I'll talk about it in a second. You can turn on shadows on and off very simply. The previous one is where that has a sun. It says sun path off. This is where we can actually place the location of our project. Again, depending on the location of the project, obviously the sun is going to come from one place or another. So this thing is very important to decide. So if you say sun setting here, opens up this window. And if you go to still, you can say where this project is, which is like a Google map, but it's just Bing, I think. And you will just say Philadelphia, whatever, search, okay. And then you can just set, once you have the setting of where it is, you can say what kind of day it is or what day it is that you're looking at. in the shadow parameters. You might want to say, I want to see the shadows of a winter solstice, no? This is at 12 p.m. or the 21st of December, no? You can also change the hours. If I say, okay, the shadows now are precisely on the winter solstice, 12 o'clock of December 21st. You want to change that back to the same place, sun setting, change the hours. You can say apply and notice how the shadows keep changing. Go down or up. Okay. So it's a very easy way to know where the shadows are going to be placed throughout the year in your project. Except that obviously we don't have all of the parameters needed to understand the shadow angle, because again, we do know where the location is, which affects the inclination of the sun, but the most important one is the orientation of the building. And we'll talk about that another day. Basically, that's under, we'll see massing and so on. Oh, so it was small. Depending on your screen, you will see it bigger or smaller. Under manage, you have location here, but you also have coordinates, and here you can set the true north of the project. We'll see that probably next class. Because again, all of these shadows are faked. These are not true until we say the orientation of the building is this way in relationship to the north. Okay, so you might be doing a project, you're doing renderings from the interior, the sun comes in a particular way in an angle, nicely beautiful, and all of that is not true because you never actually oriented the building properly. Okay, so that's very important. Okay, that's shadows. Rendering, that's the teapot. Teapot is always the rendering. Rendering settings in Revit are incredibly dummy, which is good sometimes to have dummy things and not so sophisticated. How does it work? You have settings. Setting is the quality, you know, you start maybe on medium, don't start with high or best, stay medium, do a rendering, feel comfortable, then jump to high. I will start on the screen, but maybe you want to go to printer and 300, but let's just do a screen once for now. Setting medium, scheme. Is it a cloudy day out there? That's the question. Is it an exterior render or an interior? Well, most of the time we're going to be doing interior rendering. So there's only sun. You have sun in artificial, meaning other artificial lights, etc., etc. You will click that. Sun setting is the one that you have here, but you can change it again there. So that takes you to the same panel as before. Artificial lights, if you have any artificial lights, they will appear here. You can turn them on, off, or increase their intensity, blah, blah. And then, as I said before, are there many clouds or not many clouds? You know, sky with no clouds. So that's it. There's no more. How do we do a rendering inside? Well, you need to create a camera. How do we create a camera? It's not like Rhino. Rhino, you step in with the scrolling button and the mouse. You basically need to go to View, 3D View, span that, and say Camera. If you click on Camera, you can click 2 times. Once where the camera is, and then twice all the way that you want to see. Don't stay close to the camera. Make sure you drag the mouse by clicking and maintaining the click as far out as all of the project. lift and click. Automatically, you're given an interior perspective, which automatically creates a little tab here under the 3D views. And you can modify how much you see. Right and left, top and bottom. If you want to move things, you can move it even from the perspective. You can hide things from the perspective. Sometimes it's useful. We'll talk about hiding and hiding in a second. And obviously, you can see this in different ways. No, you can see this as Raytrace already to see how it will look. Now, there's no ceiling and there's no floor. So this rendering is probably going to be a little bit too bright, no, because the sun is coming from the top. But let's imagine we're here. Rendering, as I say, teapot, setting, minimum, sun only, no, it's interior, sun and artificial, few clouds, very few clouds, no clouds, cloudy. You press render. It takes a little bit of time. Depending if you're sharing screen and stuff like that. And that's it. It's burned. A lot of light. So what I was probably gonna tell another day better is that you should adjust, obviously, once you have the floor and the walls and the ceilings, everything will change. But I'm just gonna show you a little what it will look. This will be your rendering that you can definitely export as a JPEG, and we'll be talking about rendering a lot very soon. So let's just leave it there. You can create as many cameras you want. You can move around the space by using this command, which is the full navigation wheel. You pop that out and you can zoom in. You can orbitate around the space. You can pan. You can look up and down, right and left. You can move up and down literally the height of the camera. You can walk. You can click and drag and start walking around the space. It's already a little of that virtual reality. Okay. Also rewind. Rewind is like, hey, go back in time. I made a mistake, so just go back to that position. It's a way of kind of going back the mistakes you have made in life. Okay. So that's all about the camera and how we actually do a rendering very fast. Obviously, we can create shadows already, but there's no roof or anything. The light will go through the windows, of course, etc., etc. Okay. Let's continue with these options. These options are about cropping views, and they will become quite important later on, especially in orthographic views such as plans, sections, and so on. Actually, I'm going to do a section, because we haven't talked about it. Under View, and if you're in a plan, you can click on Section. And sections work in a very simple way. You click 2 times to draw where the section goes. What do you want to cut? You click 2 times. When you're done clicking, it will show you this like blue magenta line. This is basically the direction and the depth of that view, of that section. So basically, I'm cutting through this plane. I'm looking upwards, and I'm looking all the way to that line. I can flip the section to look down, and I can say I want to see less or I want to see more. And think of that as not only the cut, but also what is being projected in front of the cut. The second I introduce a section, a new set of tabs here, sections appears, and the only section I created is there. section 1. I can double click on the section and I will be able to see the elements I'm cutting in thicker line, projected, the walls that are in front, the windows, etc. Obviously with the levels, because levels are important for sections. And there's a new thing, this like rectangle here. This is the cropping region. Cropping view, cropping region. When you create a section, it comes as a default, but every single orthograph, actually every drawing has this cropping view. But sometimes they're hidden and other times they're visible. So if I go to level 1 and I click on this little guy's crop view and crop view, see it, that's actually the crop view, crop region of the plan. Every single drawing has it again. So if I go to section, that's the one. When you select it, you know it is because it says like here, view. No? You can hide it again with those two options. The first one, what it does is cut through it, and do not cut. Cut, do not cut. So whatever's outside of that rectangle will not be shown if you click the first option. If you click back, things will appear outside of the cropping window and back and forth is a toggle option. And the second is I want to see the cropping region or I don't want to see it. Hide, unhide. And you can do that again for every single view. Let's imagine I select the cropping region, I put it here in the middle. Notice how whatever's outside of that cropping region is not visible. It's because the first crop view is on. So if I turn it off, I will be able to see it. On, off, on, off. I can also turn off and turn on the cropping region itself, like hide it and then hide it. So those are the two options that are controlled by these two parameters. Why is this here? Maybe your project is so big that you might want to create a region of that. Say crop region, and maybe you want to focus only on a particular area. Okay. Good. Next, we have the glasses and the light bulb. And now those will be the last ones for now. Glasses and light bulb are like the hide and unhide commands for Revit. And I'm going to explain about that from the 3D model. So I'm going to go 3D, get rid of the shadows. And there's an important element here. But let me pause this. Okay, we continue. This window pops up every once in a while. I recommend listening to the obsessed Revit and say, let's just save the project. And not only save the project once in a while as Revit decides it, sometimes even more, but sometimes even save as the project and name it with a different date, something like, Vis3, project 2, whatever, and then give a date. And if you have to save as again, you can say _1_2. So saving as means that if anything goes badly wrong, you can always have the previous versions with you, okay? Also, if I save this file, Control S, and I'm gonna make it here in the desktop or whatever, here, and I call it hello project. Okay. And I go to Severino here. This is the file you have to open. Here's what happens when I keep on saving and saving and saving. Oh. Notice what happened into that folder where I was saving my file. And I'm going to put this as a list. There. Depending on the settings of your software, Revit, you might have more or less of these guys. These are called save backups. No? Whenever you see your project, let's say you named it this3, project 2, whatever, and you save it, and then you save it again, you're going to be given more files with the 0001, 0002. Those are only backups. Do not start the project the day after, starting from those. You always have to open and work with a hello project or whatever name without the numbers. The backups are great because if your project fails, then you have backups, and the most recent one will be the 1, and then the 2, and then the 3. Okay, but most probably you will have lost a little bit of information because the backups happen whatever time frame that you decide in the settings. Okay, but better to lose a little information than the entire file. So that's why the backups are quite important. If you lose your file, the main file, in my case, hello project, I will open, double click on project 001, and I will save as, get rid of the 0001, give it hello project, you know, _2, whatever it is. In general, for naming conventions, and that goes for any software, don't use points. Don't use symbols and stuff like that. So be as clear as possible. Normally names in the digital world are great with scores and underscores as separators, or space as separator, but not symbols, okay? And definitely not points, because point for a computer, the point means, hey, are you gonna put an extension after, like a, you know, RPT, which is the extension of Revit, or you know, DWG, which is the extension of AutoCAD. That's what the point normally means for a computer. So don't use points and symbols and so on. Okay, we have sections, which we can create as many as we want. We can create views. And here's a very powerful thing about Revit, is that you are given these views, but you can duplicate any view as many times as you want. For example, I'm gonna go level 1, and this is my plan. Level 1, but I can right click on the plan and say duplicate view with detailing. There's duplicate, duplicate with detailing, and it's dependent. I recommend just do with detailing now, always this option, use this option. With detailing, it just brings more information. So just, if I duplicate with detailing this plan, now I have level 1 and level 1 copy 1. I can right click on this, rename and call it level 1, for example, with shadows. I turn on the shadows and I have a plan with shadows. Go back to level 1, right click, duplicate with detailing, right click, rename the new detail, and I can say level 1 fine view. And here I set this to fine, more information and layers. More, right click, double pin, duplicate with detailing, right click, rename, and I can say something like level 1 scale 1/4 or something like that. And in this one, I go and make it a 1/4. Okay. I could duplicate level 1 1,000 times if I want. And as you know more about Revit, you will realize that there are many things that you can do with each view. For example, you want to talk to a client about rooms. If I create a wall here, a partition, and this is more for construction documents, not for my case, I can actually create a legend of a room here by clicking on room, placing this room. I can give a color to this room, a name to this room, and I could just duplicate the view and say, give me different colors for only the room. So it becomes a diagram of your program, for example. This is not something I'm going to be asking for because that's more of a construction documentation. I'm deleting this now. Okay, but you can duplicate this in many ways. I never explained about the glasses and the light bulb, which is very important. So let me go and do that carefully because it also relates to one important thing in Revit. One important thing in Revit is what is called visibility and graphics. Shortcut VG. If you click VG or VV, as in victory twice, you open this panel. This panel is something we all need to understand by the end of this phase. This panel basically shows all of the categories that exist in Revit. In Autocad, you work with layers. In Revit, you work with categories. And all of these elements are all of the categories that exist in Revit. Some of them are quite obvious and we understand them perfectly, such as walls, windows, doors, I don't know, roofs. Other ones are, I'm not sure what it is, but I know what it is. It's a pipe, lines, mechanical equipment. I guess that's a mechanical furniture. We know it says so. All of the categories there's no more to Revit than this family of categories. Okay. How do we know what is what? Normally, if you select any object while you're working in Revit, it will give you here a little hint of what is the category of that object you selected. Here, right underneath the type of wall. It says walls. That means that this guy is actually of the category of walls. That kind of makes sense. The same goes for doors. I select doors, it says doors. If I select the window, it says window. Select the floor, it says floor. So those are the categories. You can hide and unhide categories by going to Visibility and Graphics, again, VV or VG, and searching for that category, let's say wall, and uncheck the little box in front of the category. If I uncheck that, and I say, okay, all of the walls will be hidden. Notice how the doors and the windows are flying around. And in theory, if you were to see this in a project, you will know there's that there are walls hidden because a window cannot fly or a door cannot fly. It needs a host, which is the wall. No? So you will know the category of walls are actually hidden. So you go back to Visibility and Graphics, pressing W to just go fast to the W and check the box, okay, and they're turned on again. Now that's quite of a fast way to go about it. You can also do it, that same thing, you can select an element, right click directly and say hide in view. And you are given two options, element or category. If you say hide in view element, well, that kind of makes sense. You hide only the object, the wall in this case that you have selected. I'm going to go back, Control Z, Control Z. If, on the other hand, I right click and I say hide in view category, well, it's almost like the same as checking the box or unchecking the box, and it will hide the entire set of walls. Again, if I go to Visibility and Graphics, walls, it is unchecked, but I just did a shortcut right clicking. You can do it even faster, but it's called a temporary hide and unhide mode. If I select the wall, the glasses is like, you have to think of it as dark glasses in a way, like you put them when it's sunny. somehow. So you put the glasses because it's sunny, but then you should, take them out if you go into a dark room or into the subway or whatever it is. So it's a temporary hiding and hide. If I click the wall and then the glasses, you have the option of hide category or hide element, which is exactly the same. But if I click hide element or hide category, you have a magenta frame around the view. This is clearly stated as temporary hide and isolate. And it's recommended that you don't stay in this phase for a long time, that you only use this to work fast on something. You need that wall to be hidden, and then you complete it some other how. When you're done, you click on the glasses again and reset. That will bring the wall back. Again, glasses are temporary. You can think of it as reading. You need glasses for reading or for driving or going to the cinema. You put them only, but you take them off afterwards. So it's a fast way of working with hiding and hiding the glasses. It also has a feature of hide category. And again, cyan frame. I say magenta, sorry, cyan frame. That means that, again, temporary reset afterwards, after you're done with something. Another way is, another thing you can do is isolate, which is similar to AutoCAD. It's basically isolate element means that everything else is turned off except the wall. Maybe you want to work on it a little bit alone, etc. But again, you go back to reset or isolate category. Everything else is turned off except the walls, and then again reset. Okay. The light bulb, on the other hand, is a more temporary solution, less temporary, a bit more fixed solution. And I normally use it or explain it in a way that is, you enter a room that is in dark, it's completely dark, and you want to see everything, you turn on the light bulb. So whatever is hidden or dark, it will be shown. Let's, for example, I right-click hide element. And I keep working and I don't remember that I hit that wall because I did not do it temporary. I actually did it quite permanently, which is the right-click option. If I click on the light bulb, it will turn on everything on the room again. I will be able to see everything. And it's also temporary. And is this, whatever's in red or dark magenta, that means that it's actually hidden. So I can take action with the right-click option and unhide element, and then light bulb. Let's do another example. If I go to visibility and graphics, and I go to doors, uncheck, okay, all of the doors will be hidden. And I'm not sure if I had a door there or whatever. You click on the light bulb, everything is turned on, and the things that are off are shown in dark magenta or red. I don't know what this is. Dark purple, etc. And if you want, you can take action. Select, right-click, unhide category, light bulb. Okay. So again, glasses is temporary hide and unhide. Light bulb is, hey, I want to see everything that is hidden, and I might want to show it back or unhide with a right-click option. Okay. Any questions about that? Let's actually